Welcome back to Management Development Unlocked. I am thrilled that you are here. I'm Eric Girard, and I'm the CEO of Girard Training Solutions, a management development firm that focuses on helping new managers transform from being great individual contributors to great people managers. I also have an Amazon #1 best-selling book called Lead Like a Pro, The Essential Guide for New Managers. Today, I am delighted to have Hazel Quiatchon with me. Hazel, welcome to the show. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, Eric. Thanks for having me. I am a leadership development practitioner and executive coach for 20 years. My name is Hazel Quiatchon. I currently work as a senior director and head of leadership development at a tech company. I live and work in the California Bay Area and have developed hundreds of leaders to be the best coaches for their teams.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad you're here. We're going to have a really interesting conversation today, so I'm looking forward to seeing where we wind up.
Me too.
So our topic today is leading collaborative teams. And we're going to focus, we're going to talk a lot about your experience as an executive coach. So we'll see how this turns out. My first question for you, Hazel, is as an executive coach, what are some of the most common challenges you see managers face when leading different types of teams, such as customer service, sales, or engineering teams?
In my experience coaching leaders, I find that the most effective leaders and managers are those who understand that each of their teams have their own unique dynamics, unique needs, unique experiences, and backgrounds. What I would say, though, for each of the different teams, let's say if you're leading customer service group of employees, you know that the folks are usually fresh out of college, right? And so it's probably their first corporate job. And so typically managers are challenged by having to help people get along, dealing with different personalities, motivating team members. They are dealing with irate customers a lot all day and addressing performance issues. And so it's really important that if you're a manager of that team, you provide your team members with those training and resources to help them handle challenging customer interactions, coaching them as what a manager should do. And then also being able to empathize with their team members, demonstrate those active listening skills that I know you talk about in your podcast, and problem-solving skills. I would say, though, on the other hand, if you're managing a technical team or an engineering team, you're leading really smart people, really talented people, very intelligent folks, also very independent thinkers. And as a manager, you need to be able to build those team norms that help make sure that the team knows they are a team and they are working together for a collective purpose. It can be quite challenging for a technical leader to do that because at times as well, they're also usually more comfortable doing the work themselves. And so for these managers, I usually coach them on taking a step back, asking questions first, as opposed to jumping in with a solution right away, asking their team members for input, and then delegating more responsibilities that stretch and challenge their teams. And I would say my final comment for this question is that as a leader of sales managers, so now you're leading very goal-driven, ambitious folks, relentless folks. It is really important for those leaders that they're not only recognizing, meeting the numbers, but also acknowledging and providing praise for team-oriented behaviors, like helping colleagues out on demos or mentoring more junior employees. Sales leaders are naturally very good at creating a motivational environment based on healthy competition, but they can be even more powerful leaders if they create team-based goals that their folks can then rally together.
Oh, you're speaking my love language with coaching and delegating and all these things. Yeah, absolutely. Empathy, of course, you know that I love to talk about empathy and stress the importance of that. So this is all really good stuff. So wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next question for you is, how do you coach managers to address common team dilemmas, such as dealing with underperforming team members? That happens sometimes. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, it doesn't happen a lot, right? Yes, it does. It does happen. And it is a thing that almost every manager has to face at some point. And so when I'm coaching managers on how to deal with underperforming team members, I actually always ask them, have you been actively giving feedback? And if the answer is no, that's fine. But then the manager will then really need to learn and practice how to give effective, specific, and constructive feedback that is clear. It's clear and kind. And actually, Brene Brown said this, and she said, being clear is kind, essentially. And I strongly believe in this. And however, some managers do shy away from giving honest feedback for fear that they will disengage the employee. But in fact, as you know this, employees crave and want feedback because it helps them improve and helps them get better in their jobs. And so I really think that managing performance, it starts from day one. And as a manager, you set clear expectations. You provide both positive and constructive feedback. You offer support and resources to help them improve. And if the issue persists, it may then be necessary to implement some kind of performance improvement plan, whatever it is that is the policy within your company. I also want to add another comment there in that from a team perspective, managers should really pay attention to their underperformers because also, as you know, if you wait too long to address them, it can negatively impact your best performers in a team. It's almost like having a virus in your team. It does spread, and you're fooling yourself as a manager if you feel like it only impacts you or it only impacts that particular employee. And so your people may not be telling you that it's impacted them negatively, but it is. And they're really looking to you as a leader to do something about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, you got to nip it in the bud as soon as you can.
Nip it in the bud. Don't
Yeah.
wait too long.
Yeah, don't wait too long. Absolutely.
Yes. Have the difficult conversation is what I say.
Yeah, have it. And
Yeah.
do it in private and do it kindly and be clear. There are so many models for providing effective feedback and coaching. My favorite for feedback is SBI. My favorite for coaching is Grow. Do you have a favorite model?
I love it. Actually, I love both. That's what we also teach in our programs at my company. We did do a riff on the SBI. I don't. You might like it. We call it SBIE.
Mm-hmm.
So we add an even better if at the end of it, and so we do teach our managers to sort of provide a suggestion for improvement, provide an action in the end. But those are the really classic ones that are also my favorite.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. In your coaching experience, are there specific models or frameworks that you refer to most often to help managers improve their team performance? So we touched on Grow. Do you want to go deep on that, or do you have another model you like?
I do, yeah. So it is really just kind of a model for diagnosing team issues. And it is based on Patrick Lencioni's classic book. A lot of leaders and managers, I'm sure, know about it. It's called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. You're nodding, which is a good thing. It is a powerful tool, I think, for diagnosing and addressing really common issues that can hinder team performance. So, just really quickly for folks who don't know what it is, the five dysfunctions of a team are: the first one is lack of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoiding accountability, and inattention to results. And in my opinion, and from my experience, a lot of teamwork issues can be diagnosed by using any of these five symptoms. For me, though, the most important takeaway from this model and what I tend to teach and coach my managers and leaders is that the foundation of an effective team is just making sure that there's trust there. There needs to be trust so that your team members know they can count on each other to get the work done and that their fellow team members will do what they say they're going to do. And also, the best managers understand what the role as a leader means. And then their role is really creating those conditions that promote trust. So that's why that model is my favorite.
Yeah, I love it too. I teach it as well. And yeah, I've been on teams where we didn't trust the manager or I didn't trust the manager and it caused real problems.
Exactly.
So without that foundational layer of trust, You're not going to do conflict well. You're not going to do the other things that lead to results. You're not going to get good results or any results if you're churning all the time with, well, he said this and she said that. And
Right. And you're kind of stuck in that storming phase, right? So
Mhm.
I'm using another model, but the Tuckman's model of forming, storming, norming, performing. And then it's normal to go through those stages, but if you don't address the trust issues, the fear of conflict issues, people are not giving feedback with each other honestly, then you're kind of stuck in that storming phase, right? And so it's really important to just take a step back, um, talk to your team, talk to team members, see what's going on. Have team building exercises. So simple. Um, Take them out to lunch. I don't know, go on a cooking class. Do some fun things online. And actually, my team at work, we do this really cool thing once a month. It's called Pints, but it's actually like 8 in the morning my time. But it stands for Positivity Ideas Networking Toast, and it's kind of one of those kind of replacement for a water cooler conversation, but it's virtually because we're all spread everywhere. And it's a really great way for us to get to know each other personally and again develop that trust.
Yeah, so important. So important. Yeah, love it. Great.
Yeah.
And by the way, for my book, not only did I refer to the Tuckman model, but I went and found Bruce Tuckman's original article from 1965
No way.
and pulled it in. Yeah, I've got a copy of it.
I'd like to see it, please.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got it filed away. I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
cool.
Sounds good.
Moving on. As an executive coach, what advice do you give to managers leading diverse and global teams?
So I think that uh, every manager, even if your team is limited to a single geographic location, I think need to really think of themselves as a global leader. And what that means is you're aware and you're intentional about managing people with different ages, right, ethnicities, backgrounds, and experiences. And I think that also means that they need to have the courage to say, well, I don't know much about your culture, religion. Can you tell me more? Or I would really like some feedback on how I'm coming across in this conversation. And so I think what's really important is that a manager managing a global team is also willing to admit their mistakes. And then you move on and you learn from it. And then there's also sort of a lot of the tips out there in which you need to be mindful about different time zones. You need to be mindful about how people want to communicate, how they want to be recognized, how they prefer to be scheduling and setting up meetings. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of the common principles for team development and building trust still apply.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, when you're working across time zones, one of my very favorite tools is timeanddate.com. Are you familiar with that
Hmm.
website?
I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely love it. There's a meeting planner that's part of it. And you can set up a meeting, with as many time zones as you want. You can just keep adding time zones. So, for example, let's say that I'm in the Pacific time zone, and then I've got somebody who is in Iowa, and somebody who's in New York, and somebody who's in Mumbai. And
Right.
I'm trying to get all of us together at a time that's not horrible for somebody.
Yeah.
It color
It's hard,
codes.
isn't it?
It is hard, yeah, but it color codes and says, okay, green is during normal business hours, yellow is slightly outside normal business hours, and red is when people are usually sleeping, right? So
Yeah.
you can just look at the time zone, the colors, and say, okay, it's green for this person, it's green for this person, it's yellow for this person, it's red for that person. Okay, that's no good. I'm not going to ask them to come to this meeting at 2 a.m. So you can just keep looking until you find something that is tolerable, doable, so that you don't stick somebody with a terrible meeting time. So
Yeah.
my favorite tool. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna look into that.
There you go. All right. Let's talk about remote and hybrid work next.
Yes.
Specifically, what strategies do you suggest to managers leading teams in new work arrangements like remote and hybrid?
I think though for these managers, it really poses a unique challenge for them. I myself have direct reports from different time zones, different areas of the country. And I think it's really a special challenge for managers to ensure that there is team spirit and collaboration. I also think as well that managers that have remote employees, you also have a really tough job of ensuring that there's equity and fairness, because you also want to make sure that there is equal attention for each team members in showing their skills and growing and stretching in their development. Um, I also feel like here, this is where communication has to be focused on quality, right? And not just quantity. Um, and so, some of the tips from managers here are just really setting those clear expectations, like what I mentioned before. You need to set those on day one, making sure that you're aware of what you expect in terms of availability, deliverables, really focusing on outcomes, not just the activities. So not just constantly checking Slack. Are they online? They're online yet? Did they respond to me yet? So try not to micromanage. It can really be demoralizing for the employee. Just maintaining those regular check-ins, but also if there's an opportunity, try to see your team in person. And I try to do that actually. I have a new person who's starting um, this week and in Boston, and I'm hoping to see that person within a month. And that's what I did. I was kind of around the neck of your woods. I was in Vancouver, Washington, visiting my employee, and so I think just having FaceTime is just priceless. But it's definitely challenging managing remote employees. But I think that is where there needs to be a lot of clear communication and clear expectations.
Yeah, and I agree. I think FaceTime is super important. It's good to meet like this. It's good to meet, via Zoom or whatever your tool of choice is. But there's still so much that gets lost in between my camera and your camera. And so
Absolutely.
being able to sit down across a table with a cup of coffee and just have a conversation and hash out something could take 15 minutes in person, might take 3 at 1 hour meetings over Zoom. So I'm a huge fan of
Yeah.
in person wherever you can.
And I think too, you brought up a good point of having a clear purpose when you're meeting in person. And so when I met with my team member in person, we actually used that to do some kind of long-term visioning and brainstorming as opposed to like the typical updates, which we could just kind of do it like on Zoom, right? And so really being purposeful about that, and like what we've been talking about earlier, just really leveraging that to build trust, go to dinner, go to lunch, maybe have a career conversation. And so it's really kind of making the most out of that FaceTime with,
Mhm.
with your people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody loves leading a team.
Right.
Believe it or not. So what advice do you have for new managers who find leading a team daunting?
It's definitely understandable. I think, and especially if you're transitioning from an individual contributor to a manager, it can really be a big jump because now you're trying to get the work done through others. It's not just yourself anymore. And you also need to kind of resist the urge to jump in and provide the solutions, right? And so I think, again, number one tip that I have is prioritize building that relationship and trust with your team members. Understand who they are, what are their strengths and weaknesses, what motivates them, what excites them, what energizes them during the day, what they want to learn, what are some of their career goals. And then also setting those clear expectations. I think not forgetting the fact that you need to provide ongoing feedback, positive and constructive, and recognition, and just lead by example. So if you're expecting a certain behavior from your team, certain values from your team, you should also be demonstrating that as a leader. And so I think those are sort of the three tips that I would share for a new manager. And I think just really have fun being a leader. Managing people can be fun as well. I know it can also be challenging, but it's also like it's not just yourself now. You now have people around you to help you get the work done. And in my opinion, I really find benefit from brainstorming from other people, benefiting from other people's ideas, and sometimes it can be lonely doing things by yourself. So I hope as a new manager, they will actually find that experience managing a team actually a really good experience for them.
Yeah, I have found leading a team to be really fulfilling. And I learned now I'm going to preface this comment by saying that I don't want to say, or I don't mean to say that your employees are like children. But I have twin 15-year-old daughters, and they always hold me to account when my actions don't match up with my words.
Yeah.
So, an adult employee might be a little less blunt than my 15-year-old teen daughters. But people notice, if you say, fill in the blank, if you say, you're not going to slam doors when you walk around the house, and then you slam a door, sure enough, one of those 15-year-olds is going to yell at me and say, "Dad, you told us not to slam a door." So walking your talk, I think, is so important in life, and especially when you're leading a team. One of the things that I try to do is I let my team know that I believe that time off is important. And so I tell them when they go on vacation, ignore my emails, like set them aside and come back. If I email you, go ahead and set them aside, ignore them, and come back to respond when you get back to the office. So when I go on vacation, I have to remind myself, okay, I'm not working, or I'm working just a little bit. Maybe I'll batch the emails to send after I get back or something. But just practicing what I preach about time off and how important that is. That those are just little things you can do.
I mean, speaking about like time off, and I think there's also, you hit the point around your intent versus impact, because it wasn't your intent to make the person feel like they have to answer you during crazy times at night or on vacation. I also had to learn that myself, as a manager in the past, where I tend to just send emails at night because sometimes I'm working in the evening when there's a lot of things to do or I'm trying to catch up. And I really had a good employee that was really honest, and we had trust, obviously, and was able to give me feedback that, hey, Hazel, it just felt like you were expecting us to answer during those crazy hours at night, and it totally wasn't my intention. So I think that's also like where the trust helps, like with your daughter being able to hold you accountable, and then also my team member holding me accountable for not making them crazy. And so which is why I keep going back to trust. It is it's such an important foundation.
Yeah. And by the way, another tech tip for avoiding spamming your team members during vacations or during off hours is sending emails to send later, timing the emails. Most email programs have that functionality where you can say, send this at 9:00 tomorrow morning, and rather than at 11:00 that night.
Yes, a godsend. I've been using that for my Slack as well. It's the best.
Oh, Slack does it as well?
Yes, Slack does it as well.
I really only have one team member who uses Slack because my team is very small. So we have an understanding, but I'll look into that for sure.
Yeah, it's so handy.
Yeah. All right, let's transition now and talk about you. So specifically, let's talk about your role and your executive coaching practice. So tell us about that.
I have been coaching managers and leaders for the past 20 years. I did go to coaching school. It's called IPEC. And it was such an amazing experience. But even before that, I had been coaching managers and leaders as well, either as part of a leadership development program or independently. Currently, I do have a few clients, some leaders from typically Silicon Valley tech startups that I'm also coaching, and I also coach leaders from my own company now as well. But that's really sort of like my focus right now is building leadership development programs for different levels of leaders. I know a lot of the audiences in this podcast are typically new managers. I'm actually creating a program right now for new managers on SBI feedback, growth coaching, managing performance, all of that good stuff. And then also coaching some of our senior leaders as well. And I just enjoy it. I love it. Also open to coaching individuals, easily reachable via LinkedIn if you want to work with me. Very solution focused. I am kind of a organizational psychology nerd. And so I really like to bring those models, but I also don't kill you with academic language. I definitely have learned how to apply those scientific principles into real life. And that's what I tend to bring into my coaching.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
great. Excellent. Well, that's good to hear. Well, Hazel, that brings us to the end of our time together. So thank you
Wow.
Yeah, it flew
It went
by.
by so fast. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for a very interesting conversation. That was a lot of fun. Tell us again how we can find you if we want to reach out and learn more.
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, Hazel Quiatchon. I'm sure, or I'll just send you the link
Yeah,
to
we'll
your
put it in the show notes.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
easy.
And that's the best way to reach me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody, thanks for listening. Please subscribe to the show and connect with me on LinkedIn. Pick up my book, Lead Like a Pro, The Essential Guide for New Managers, available on Amazon. It is a paperback, an ebook, and an Audible book. And if you head to my website, gerardtrainingsolutions.com, you can get the first 2 chapters free. If you'd like to chat about how I can help you or your new managers, please drop me a line via my website, gerardtrainingsolutions.com. We will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.